I paid for the wine she drank with another man. And I found out because Glovo emailed me a thank you for the delivery. 3:19 p.m. Hotel Palms. Room 217. One bottle, semi-sweet red. The note said, same as last time. Strawberry finish. She told me she was at a corporate strategy session. No food, no drinks, just boring slides. She came home at 6:40, dropped her heels, said she was starving. I asked what floor the meeting was on. She blinked. 20-something? She showered before dinner. New perfume. Sweet. Fruity. Not hers. I said, that smells new. She laughed. Must be something from the office. She lied without blinking. That was the worst part. Not the wine. Not the room. Not even the fact she used my card. The smile. The ease. Like I wasn't a husband, just a mirror she didn't bother to clean. So I smiled back. Ate dinner. Talked about nothing. Then I pulled every digital receipt from the last 60 days. Hotel Palms showed up 4 times. Always weekdays. Always mid-afternoon. Always when I was too busy working to notice. She thought she was untouchable. She forgot who set up her email. She forgot I read silence for a living. She forgot that I don't ask twice. That night, I slept next to her like normal. Except now, I was awake. I spent the next day watching her like a scientist watches a test subject. Everything she did felt choreographed. The way she paused before answering. The way she touched her phone screen and smiled like someone texted her something warm. The sudden girls' night plans. The new yoga pants that still had the tag. The perfume that wasn't hers. Not her brand. Not even close. And definitely not for me. I didn't say a word. But I stopped pretending. Thursday morning, I synced her iPad to my cloud. She'd left it unlocked. The backup began automatically. I opened the messages folder and waited. Within 10 minutes, I saw the name. Noah. Work. Innocent enough. But not when the last message said, same room. And she replied, already checked in. Wine's on the way. I scrolled up. Missed you Monday. You owe me a round. Round 2. I wore the black one today. I'll help you take it off. Then photos. Her neck. Her thigh. Her smirk. All from angles meant to tease. All taken at Hotel Palms. I sat there with the iPad glowing in my hands and realized something that hurt worse than betrayal. She was good at it. This wasn't an affair. This was a second life. A new version of her. One I had no access to. One that looked a lot like happiness. And she looked nothing like she looked with me. Friday, she left early. Team breakfast, she said. I waited 15 minutes, then followed. Her car went downtown. I stayed 1 block behind. At 8:27 a.m., she pulled into the back lot of Hotel Palms. Roomside parking. Not valet. Not main entrance. She got out smiling. Carrying nothing. Hair down. Different lipstick. She knocked twice. Room 217. I parked across the street, took out my phone, and took the shot. Proof wasn't what I needed. I already had that. What I wanted was strategy. I wasn't going to blow this up. I was going to dismantle it. Quietly. Precisely. Piece by piece. She thought she was writing the story. She forgot who keeps the receipts. There are things you notice once you stop trying to explain them away. New habits. Small shifts. Things that don't scream betrayal, but whisper it. She started sleeping in silk again. Not for comfort. She never found it practical. But suddenly, she was into nightgowns. Slippery, expensive ones. Wore perfume to bed. Moisturized her legs at midnight. She did calls in the hallway. Said it was for focus. She deleted texts after reading them. Switched her phone face down whenever I was near. Her playlist changed, more upbeat, flirtier. She'd hum along in the kitchen, phone propped up on the windowsill, texting with her back to me. She started wearing earrings again. Said it made her feel polished. I hadn't seen her wear jewelry at home in years. Now she wore it to meetings. Every lie was subtle. Every move had cover. But the pattern was clear if you stopped pretending. So I did. I recorded everything. Not just messages. Movements. Calls. Times. GPS pings. I created a timeline. She had no idea. Not just that I knew, but that I was building a case. She still smiled like she was winning. Saturday morning, she said she was meeting a friend for brunch. I said I'd go out for errands. Instead, I followed her. She drove to a florist. Walked in empty-handed. Came out with a small box. Not flowers. A gift. Wrapped. She drove to a residential building I'd never been to. Walked in without buzzing. Stayed 28 minutes. When she came out, she was wiping lip gloss from the corner of her mouth. I didn't need to know who lived there. That wasn't the point. It wasn't about names anymore. It was about control. Sunday, she acted like nothing happened. Made waffles. Told me we needed to talk about travel plans. I said sure. She showed me options for Hawaii, smiling like she didn't taste someone else less than 24 hours ago. I said we should go somewhere quiet. Remote. Good for thinking. She agreed. Said we both needed it. I smiled. Because the only thing I needed was a clean exit. Next week, I'd let her finish digging her own hole. Then I'd give her the microphone and let her explain how she fell in. Tuesday night, I stayed late at work. Not because I had to, but because I wanted to see what she'd do. She always acted different when I wasn't around. Like my absence made her lighter. When I got home, she was already asleep. Her phone was charging on her side of the bed, but the iPad was in the kitchen, still lit. She must have forgotten to close it. It was open to her voice notes. I tapped the most recent one. At first, I thought it was a memo for work. She used to do that, record reminders, notes to self, draft emails by voice. But this one wasn't for work. I hate how he looks at me lately, she said. Her voice was calm, soft, like she was already detached. Like I owe him something. Like I'm supposed to pretend I don't feel what I feel. There was a pause. Then she said, Noah sees me. He doesn't make me feel like I'm broken. He listens. He doesn't flinch when I talk about what I want. Not like here. Here, everything is maintenance. She sighed. I know I should feel guilty. I don't. I just feel awake. I stared at the screen. I don't remember sitting down. I don't remember breathing. It was like being stabbed slowly from the inside. She didn't know I'd hear that. She recorded it for herself. That's what made it real. No audience. No filter. I copied the file to my phone. The next morning, she was all smiles. Made coffee. Kissed my neck. Asked if I wanted eggs. I said no. I couldn't stomach anything. She chatted about the weather, then mentioned a team-building hike that Friday. I might be home late, she said. Don't wait up. I nodded. Take pictures. I want to see the view. She smiled again. Of course. That Friday, I didn't follow her. I followed Noah. He worked downtown at a media firm. I waited outside his building. Watched him come out just after 5 p.m. He wasn't dressed for a hike. He was dressed for her. Collared shirt. Slim jacket. Clean shave. He drove to a wine bar on 11th, reserved table. 2 glasses. She arrived 13 minutes later. Different lipstick. Hair up. Smile ready. They sat close. Touched hands. Shared dessert. I didn't record them. I didn't need more proof. I already had her voice saying she didn't feel guilty. What I needed now was a way to use that voice. To show her what truth sounds like when it isn't whispered. Next week, we had dinner plans with her friends. A birthday. Private room. Cake. Candles. Speeches. She asked me to say something. Just a toast. You're good with words. I said sure. And I already knew exactly what I'd play. I spent the week preparing the file. Her voice, clear as glass, layered over the soft clink of wine glasses and distant traffic, ambient sound from the bar where she met Noah. I'd stood outside that night and recorded the street. Later, I mixed it under her voice note. I wanted it to feel real. I wanted it to feel recent. The birthday dinner was at a private back room in a trendy bistro she picked. White tablecloths, gold accents, candles in little glass jars. She wore emerald green, low back, hair curled. I hadn't seen her put that much effort into anything for us in months. There were 10 of us. Friends from college. Her coworkers. 2 of mine. People who thought we were fine. She clinked a fork against her glass, smiled too wide, said, Okay, before dessert, my amazing husband wants to say a few words. I stood up, looked around the table, smiled. Then I took out my phone and pressed play. At first, they just heard noise. Street sounds. A car passing. Then her voice. I hate how he looks at me lately. Like I owe him something. Like I'm supposed to pretend I don't feel what I feel. Her smile froze. Someone laughed, thinking it was a joke. Then the next line played. Noah sees me. He doesn't make me feel like I'm broken. Silence. A full table of people. All frozen. Staring at her. Some turned to me. One friend gasped. I didn't say a word. I just let it run. 1 minute, 27 seconds. She didn't interrupt. Didn't scream. Didn't reach for the phone. She just sat there. Pale. Hands in her lap. When it ended, I looked at her. To truth, I said. Happy birthday. I sat down. No one clapped. The candles on the cake flickered, waiting for someone to blow them out. She didn't move. Her best friend leaned over and whispered something. Another excused herself. Her coworker looked like he'd swallowed glass. She stood up slowly. Said she needed air. Walked out the back door. I stayed 10 more minutes. Drank my wine. Answered 3 questions. Then I left. She was outside, pacing. Phone in her hand. Crying, but holding it in. The kind of crying people do when they know they can't afford to fall apart. She said, "You humiliated me." I said, "No, you did. I just made sure the right people heard it." She opened her mouth to argue. Closed it. Looked down. "You don't get to pretend anymore," I said. I walked to my car. She didn't follow. That night, I slept at a hotel. Not Palms. Somewhere quiet. The next morning, she texted me, "We need to talk." I texted back, "We already did." She didn't reply. Monday, she didn't come home after work. I didn't ask where she was. I didn't care. Tuesday, I opened a new bank account. Wednesday, I called a lawyer. Thursday, I canceled our trip. Friday, I sent her a file. It was just the voice recording. Renamed. You. In your own words. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was the adjustment. The slow, jarring shift from being a husband to being a strategist. From asking how her day went to tracking where her day went. From believing we were a team to realizing I was a placeholder. A background character she used for tax benefits, sympathy points, and steady emotional supply. She didn't text for 3 days after the file. I didn't initiate. The silence wasn't awkward. It was clean. Sharp. Like a door that finally closed. When she finally showed up at the house, it was a Thursday. She didn't knock. Still had a key. She walked in like it was still hers. She looked smaller. Hair pulled back, no makeup, flats instead of heels. She carried a paper bag from a bakery she used to love. I watched her set it down on the counter like it was some kind of offering. "I brought almond croissants," she said. "Thought maybe we could talk." I stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed. She reached into the bag, took one out, held it up like a peace treaty. "Still your favorite?" "They were," I said. She blinked. Put the pastry down. "Look," she started. "I know I screwed up. But what you did, playing that recording, it was cruel. What you said," I replied, "was honest. I just gave it the room it deserved." She shook her head. "You wanted to destroy me." "No. I wanted you to hear yourself. Without the comfort of excuses." She leaned against the counter. "I wasn't trying to hurt you. You weren't trying not to." She winced. Looked away. For a moment, I saw the cracks. Not in her act, but in her belief that she could still manage me. Control the frame. Play the victim. She picked at the edge of the paper bag. "I miss you," she said quietly. "You miss winning," I said. "You miss not being seen." Her eyes flashed. "That's not fair." "No," I said. "Fair was back when I trusted you." Silence. "I want to fix this," she said. "We can go to therapy. Work through it." "I already did," I said. In silence. "While you lied." She crossed her arms. "So that's it? You're just done?" "I'm not angry," I said. "I'm awake." She stared at me for a long time. Then she walked to the door. "I'll come for my things next week." "I won't be here." She hesitated. "Are you seeing someone?" I almost laughed. "No. I'm seeing clearly." She left. That night, I boxed up the wedding photos. Took down the print in the hallway she picked. Replaced it with something abstract, shapes and lines, no faces. Clean. Honest. Saturday morning, her brother called me. Said she wasn't doing well. Said she felt lost. Said I should at least hear her out. I did, I said. And now so did everyone else. He was quiet. "You think she's sorry?" I asked. "I think she's shocked," he said. "She didn't think you had it in you." "I didn't," I said. Until I had to. I met with my lawyer that afternoon. We reviewed assets, accounts, contingencies. She had a decent income, so alimony was off the table. The house was mine before the marriage. We kept our finances separate, her idea, ironically. She had no leverage. Not anymore. But leverage wasn't the point. Dignity was. I didn't want revenge. I wanted clean air. Sunday, I drove out to the coast. Left my phone in the glove box. Just walked the beach for an hour. Breathed. Let the sound of the water reset something in me. When I came home, I opened a folder on my computer labeled Final. Inside were every screenshot, audio file, timestamp, GPS coordinate, and email I'd saved. I compressed them into a zip file, encrypted it, and uploaded it to a secure drive. Not for blackmail. For memory. So that if I ever started doubting myself, I could reopen that file and remember, I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. I was patient. And I was right. That night, I slept with the windows open. For the first time in months, the silence didn't ache. It breathed. Monday morning, I got a call from her attorney. Not mine. Hers. She'd like to discuss terms privately before anything official is filed, he said. I said, no. He paused. Would you be open to mediation? I've already mediated the only thing that mattered. My peace. I hung up. 10 minutes later, she texted. Please. Just coffee. 1 hour. No pressure. I didn't answer. That evening, I saw her car outside the house. She was sitting inside, engine off, staring at the front door. I watched from the upstairs window. She never rang the bell. Never knocked. Just sat there. Then drove off. Wednesday morning, she showed up at my office. Reception buzzed. Said, your wife is here. Says it's urgent. Not anymore, I said. I kept working. 5 minutes later, my phone lit up. Please. I'm not asking for anything. Just the truth. I stepped out, told the receptionist to let her in. She looked rough. Sleep-deprived. Pale. She sat across from me, legs crossed tight, hands gripping a coffee cup with no sleeve. Burning herself and not reacting. I made mistakes, she said. But you've made your point. You've won. There wasn't a game. You cheated. I left. That's not a scoreboard. That's consequence. She looked down. I wasn't thinking. No. You were. Every detail. Every cover story. Every exit. You just didn't think I'd find out. She swallowed. I wanted to feel wanted. Then go back to the man who made you feel that way. He's married. He ended it. He said he never meant for it to go this far. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, so now you're the one left behind? She flinched. I don't want to lose everything. You already did. You just haven't felt it yet. She stared at me. You really can't forgive me? I can. And I might. But not in a way that puts you back in my life. She nodded slowly. So this is goodbye. It was goodbye the moment you smiled while lying. This is just the paperwork. She got up to leave. At the door, she turned back. If I ever meant anything to you. You did, I said. That's why it hurts. She left. That night, I poured the last glass of the wine she once loved. The one she mocked during the affair. Drank it in silence. Let it burn. Then I opened a new document. Labeled it. Closure. Page 1. She offered coffee. I offered the truth. Only one of us drank it. I kept writing. Not for her. Not for anyone else. For me. The next day, she called my sister. Tried to explain her side. Said she had felt unseen. Said I was emotionally distant. Said the affair wasn't planned. It just happened. That it was a moment that got away from her. My sister listened. Then sent me a voice memo. She still thinks the problem is how she felt. Not what she did. I sent back a one-word reply. Exactly. That night, I got a long email. No greeting. Just paragraphs. Half memory, half manipulation. She talked about the first time we met. About a coffee shop, a cold day, the way I smiled at her like I saw through the noise. I miss who we were, she wrote. I miss who I was with you. I didn't respond. A few days later, I got a certified letter. She wanted to propose post-nuptial conditions, an attempt to preserve assets, delay filing. An accountant strategy dressed up in emotional language. I ignored it. Then came the package. Delivered to my door by courier. Handwritten note inside. This is everything. My journals. My side. I want you to know me. Even if it's too late. I opened the first notebook. Pages filled with self-analysis. Guilt. Rationalizations. Lines underlined in red ink. I wanted both lives. I didn't think I'd be caught. He sees everything now. I miss being invisible. Am I evil or just selfish? It wasn't remorse. It was a confession to herself, not to me. She still wasn't talking to me, just trying to reclaim the narrative. I closed the journals. Boxed them. Didn't throw them away. But I didn't read more. I didn't need to understand her. I'd spent years doing that. What I needed was to remember who I was before I bent myself around someone else's damage. I booked a solo trip that night. Somewhere cold. Sparse. A place that didn't need explaining. I left on a Monday. No announcements. No forwarding address. I turned off my phone somewhere over Denver. I hiked. I read. I cooked for one. I slept deeply. I didn't think about her. Not because I'd healed. Because I was finally somewhere she'd never been. When I came home, I threw away the wine glasses. Got new ones. Bought plates that didn't match hers. Rearranged the furniture, not for function, but because I could. I looked in the mirror and didn't see a man rebuilding. I saw a man returned. She offered coffee. I offered the truth. Only one of us drank it. It's strange what stays with you. Not the big moments, the toast, the fight, the door slamming. It's the small ones. The way she used to twist her ring when she was hiding something. The exact sound of her laugh when it wasn't real. The way she'd touch your arm when she wanted something. The sudden stillness when a text came in and she didn't want you to see it. I saw her 3 weeks after the journals. I wasn't planning to. I was picking up dry cleaning, walking back to my car, when I saw her through the glass of a wine bar. Daylight. Early afternoon. Alone. Just sitting at a table, staring at her phone. She looked, still, like someone who hadn't moved in hours. Same coat she wore when we first met. Her hair was up the same way. Like she was trying to remind herself of who she used to be. I didn't go in. I stood across the street and watched. 5 minutes. 10. She didn't smile. Didn't check the time. Didn't touch her drink. It hit me then. She wasn't waiting for anyone. She was sitting in the memory, letting it rot. The next morning, a mutual friend called. Said she'd heard rumors, people saying I'd overreacted, that I humiliated her, that she was trying. I told her, trying doesn't undo choosing. She went quiet. Then said, she's not doing great. Neither was I said. But I didn't cheat. She asked if I wanted to say anything to her. I told her no. That if she wanted closure, she could find it in her own journals. Later that night, I found a folder in my inbox. No message. Just a file titled, Perspective. It was a video. Her. Talking to her phone. Crying. You're not supposed to see this, she said. But maybe it's the only way I can be honest. She talked for 10 minutes. About how she felt nothing when it started. About how she craved validation. How every lie came easier than the last. I thought I'd feel guilty. I didn't. Not until I saw your face that night. Not until the recording. Not until I realized you were never going to scream. You were just going to leave. And that hurt more than if you'd hit me. I watched the whole thing. Then I deleted it. Not out of hate. Out of peace. Because the version of her in that video wasn't the one I loved. And the one I loved was already gone. The next week, I walked past a mirror in a store and didn't recognize myself. Not because I looked broken. Because I didn't. Because I looked calm. I went home and pulled out a photo from our wedding. I stared at it for a while. Not with sadness. With understanding. That guy in the photo? He loved with everything he had. But the man looking at the photo now? He finally loves himself. And that's what she'll never get back. Not the marriage. Not the house. Not the man who waited by the door. She'll remember the silence. The toast. The wine. She'll remember the mirror. And how, in the end, it only reflected her. Because I walked away. And never looked back. 2 days later, she sent one last letter. Handwritten. Mailed. It arrived in a pale blue envelope. The kind she used to send me when we were first dating. I don't know who I am without you, it began. And I know that's not your problem to fix. She wrote about nights she couldn't sleep. About walking around the house in silence, imagining me in every room. She said she missed the sound of my typing in the next room. The small jokes I made when I passed behind her. The way I never left without kissing her on the head. I used to feel like you were the calm in my storm, she wrote. And now the storm is all that's left. I read it once. Then again. Then folded it and set it aside. I didn't rip it. Didn't burn it. I simply put it in the same box as the others. The voice memo. The printed emails. The photo from the bar. Not out of longing. But to remind myself, the storm was never mine. Only the damage was. The next weekend, I visited my parents. My dad poured me coffee and said nothing. Just handed me the mug like he knew I needed it. My mom hugged me longer than usual. They didn't ask questions. Didn't try to fix anything. They just let me be. That was the most healing part of it all. Being seen and not interrogated. Being allowed to breathe without being expected to perform forgiveness. Forgiveness would come. I knew that. But not as a gift to her. As a gift to myself. The following week, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was her coworker. The one who used to smile too hard at our Christmas parties. Hey man, it read. Just wanted to say I respect how you handled everything. I didn't reply. But I saved the number. Not for anything personal. Just in case. Because you never know who's watching. Who's waiting for someone else to fall so they can slide in. I wasn't angry. Just clear. I started running again. Not far. Not fast. Just enough to feel like I was moving under my own power. I stopped checking old messages. Stopped checking her social media. I unfollowed. Muted. Archived. That was the real separation. Not legal. Not physical. Mental. I wasn't reclaiming space. I was reclaiming silence. And silence, finally, felt like mine. It's strange what stays with you. Not the big moments, the toast, the fight, The door slamming. It's the small ones. The way she used to twist her ring when she was hiding something. The exact sound of her laugh when it wasn't real. The way she'd touch your arm when she wanted something. The sudden stillness when a text came in and she didn't want you to see it. I saw her 3 weeks after the journals. I wasn't planning to. I was picking up dry cleaning, walking back to my car, when I saw her through the glass of a wine bar. Daylight. Early afternoon. Alone. Just sitting at a table, staring at her phone. She looked, still, like someone who hadn't moved in hours. Same coat she wore when we first met. Her hair was up the same way. Like she was trying to remind herself of who she used to be. I didn't go in. I stood across the street and watched. 5 minutes. 10. She didn't smile. Didn't check the time. Didn't touch her drink. It hit me then. She wasn't waiting for anyone. She was sitting in the memory, letting it rot. The next morning, a mutual friend called. Said she'd heard rumors, people saying I'd overreacted, that I humiliated her, that she was trying. I told her, trying doesn't undo choosing. She went quiet. Then said, she's not doing great. Neither was I said. But I didn't cheat. She asked if I wanted to say anything to her. I told her no. That if she wanted closure, she could find it in her own journals. Later that night, I found a folder in my inbox. No message. Just a file titled, Perspective. It was a video. Her. Talking to her phone. Crying. You're not supposed to see this, she said. But maybe it's the only way I can be honest. She talked for 10 minutes. About how she felt nothing when it started. About how she craved validation. How every lie came easier than the last. I thought I'd feel guilty. I didn't. Not until I saw your face that night. Not until the recording. Not until I realized you were never going to scream. You were just going to leave. And that hurt more than if you'd hit me. I watched the whole thing. Then I deleted it. Not out of hate. Out of peace. Because the version of her in that video wasn't the one I loved. And the one I loved was already gone. The next week, I walked past a mirror in a store and didn't recognize myself. Not because I looked broken. Because I didn't. Because I looked calm. I went home and pulled out a photo from our wedding. I stared at it for a while. Not with sadness. With understanding. That guy in the photo? He loved with everything he had. But the man looking at the photo now? He finally loves himself. And that's what she'll never get back. Not the marriage. Not the house. Not the man who waited by the door. She'll remember the silence. The toast. The wine. She'll remember the mirror. And how, in the end, it only reflected her. Because I walked away. And never looked back. 2 days later, she sent one last letter. Handwritten. Mailed. It arrived in a pale blue envelope. The kind she used to send me when we were first dating. I don't know who I am without you, it began. And I know that's not your problem to fix. She wrote about nights she couldn't sleep. About walking around the house in silence, imagining me in every room. She said she missed the sound of my typing in the next room. The small jokes I made when I passed behind her. The way I never left without kissing her on the head. I used to feel like you were the calm in my storm, she wrote. And now the storm is all that's left. I read it once. Then again. Then folded it and set it aside. I didn't rip it. Didn't burn it. I simply put it in the same box as the others. The voice memo. The printed emails. The photo from the bar. Not out of longing. But to remind myself, the storm was never mine. Only the damage was. The next weekend, I visited my parents. My dad poured me coffee and said nothing. Just handed me the mug like he knew I needed it. My mom hugged me longer than usual. They didn't ask questions. Didn't try to fix anything. They just let me be. That was the most healing part of it all. Being seen and not interrogated. Being allowed to breathe without being expected to perform forgiveness. Forgiveness would come. I knew that. But not as a gift to her. As a gift to myself. The following week, I got a text from a number I didn't recognize. It was her coworker. The one who used to smile too hard at our Christmas parties. Hey man, it read. Just wanted to say I respect how you handled everything. I didn't reply. But I saved the number. Not for anything personal. Just in case. Because you never know who's watching. Who's waiting for someone else to fall so they can slide in. I wasn't angry. Just clear. I started running again. Not far. Not fast. Just enough to feel like I was moving under my own power. I stopped checking old messages. Stopped checking her social media. I unfollowed. Muted. Archived. That was the real separation. Not legal. Not physical. Mental. I wasn't reclaiming space. I was reclaiming silence. And silence, finally, felt like mine. Some echoes don't come from what was said, but from what was never answered. A month passed. Then 2. Divorce proceedings moved forward without resistance. She signed quickly, didn't fight the terms. My lawyer said, she wants it done. Probably ashamed. But I wasn't sure. I'd come to understand something about her. Silence was her sharpest knife. She hadn't texted again. No more letters. No calls. No sudden visits. It was almost eerie. Like she'd disappeared into herself. I started seeing a therapist. Not because I was falling apart, but because I didn't want to miss anything still buried in me. Pain that hides tends to wait until you're rebuilding. She asked me why I stayed so long. I didn't have a clean answer. Love, habit, fear. The belief that loyalty had to be blind to count. We talked about the ways I'd minimized myself. The way I stopped asking for what I needed. How I read disappointment in her face like it was gospel. How I gave space when I should have drawn lines. You let her echo become louder than your own voice, the therapist said. Exactly. I started recording my thoughts every night. Not to keep receipts. Just to hear myself. To fill the air with something that didn't hurt. One night, I found an old playlist she made for me. Labeled Safe With You. I played one song. Then turned it off. It wasn't mine anymore. I began writing again. Not about her. Not even about the pain. Just stories. Observations. Moments that had nothing to do with betrayal. There was freedom in irrelevance. In knowing her name didn't belong in every chapter. I dated a little. Casual, quiet. I didn't tell anyone. I didn't know the world a status update. Some days were lighter. Others had weight. Like passing a place we loved. Or seeing someone with her perfume. Echoes. But fading ones. She resurfaced in the smallest way. A forwarded email. She hadn't meant to send it. Her name was auto-filled in a group thread from a charity we both donated to. It landed in my inbox like a relic. There was a note at the end. Written by her. A quote. Healing doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering without bleeding. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't feel warmth. Or anger. Just a shift. Like the echo had finally returned to her. And for once, she heard it, too. And maybe, for the first time since this started, she didn't try to silence it. Maybe that's how it ends. Not with revenge, but with a quiet return to your own voice. And the decision to raise it only for yourself. Because healing isn't an announcement. It's a private room. And this time, I wasn't leaving it open for her. I kept the same morning routine. Wake, run, journal. No alarms. No noise. Life wasn't exciting, but it was steady. Mine. At the cafe I started frequenting, the barista learned my order. Small kindnesses like that held me together. Not because I needed them, but because they reminded me I could still be known, even in small ways. I met someone eventually. Her name was quiet, uncomplicated in sound and syllables. She didn't ask about my past on the first date. She asked what I liked to cook, what made me laugh, where I'd travel if money didn't matter. She didn't look at me like I was broken. She looked like someone who hadn't memorized sorrow. We took it slow. I was honest about my history. She didn't flinch, just nodded and said, okay, that makes sense. No fixing, no therapy talk, just space. And in that space, I began to hear myself more clearly. I donated the last of the shared furniture, gave the couch to a student moving out of dorms, bought a new bookshelf, hung a map I always wanted but never had a place for, rearranged my life until it didn't feel borrowed. I started hosting dinner once a month. Small group. No stories about her. No hints of the man I used to be in that marriage. Just now. One night, I heard a cover of a song she once played constantly. Different key. Slower tempo. It didn't hurt. It felt like finding a scar that no longer twinged. I started sleeping deeper. Woke up rested. When I saw my reflection now, I didn't see damage control. I saw presence. This, finally, was my voice. And it didn't echo anymore. Not because she stopped making noise, but because I stopped listening for it. Returning doesn't always mean going back. Sometimes it means arriving somewhere you've never been, as someone you've never allowed yourself to become. It started with a message from her sister. We hadn't spoken since the separation. She was always protective of her, always soft-spoken around me. The text was simple. She asked about you. Said she saw your name on something. Said you looked different. I didn't reply. 2 days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I let it ring out. Then came a voicemail. Her voice, small. I'm not asking for anything. Just wanted to say I saw you on that panel. You looked strong. Clear. Like you made it. I listened twice. Not because I missed her, but because it shocked me that she still needed to say something. Still needed to be seen in my light. I remembered what my therapist said. Some people only feel visible when they're reflected in someone else. She saw me on a live stream. I was speaking at a small leadership event. Nothing major, but it had gone public. A panel on emotional resilience after professional disruption. I had told a story, not about her, not directly, but about finding stillness after chaos. About how silence can save a life. Apparently, she saw it. Apparently, it made her feel something. Apparently, she wanted me to know. But I didn't answer the call. Instead, I took a drive out to the lake. Rented a cabin for a few days. Took nothing with me except a book, a notebook, and some coffee. I sat by the water and let the world be quiet again. And while I was out there, something shifted. Not dramatically. Not all at once. But like a door gently clicking closed behind me. I stopped checking my phone. I stopped thinking in second person. I started using I again. When I came back to the city, there was a letter in my mailbox. Handwritten. No return address. Just my name. Inside, her handwriting. A final note. I watched the talk 3 times. You didn't mention me, but I felt like you did. I heard myself in your pauses. In the way you spoke about silence. It's funny. I always thought the worst part would be you yelling. But it was you walking away. You left me in a story with no ending. And I guess I deserved that. I just wanted you to know. I'm sorry. For all of it. For taking peace from someone who only ever gave it. I folded the letter. Didn't throw it away. Didn't reread it. Just set it in the drawer where I keep my passport and spare keys. Things you only open when you're ready to go somewhere new. The next week, I gave a talk at a local university. Afterward, a young man came up to me. Said his girlfriend had cheated on him 6 months ago. Said he hadn't told anyone until that day. He asked me, how did you not go numb? I said, I did. For a while. But numb is just pain without a name. Once you name it, you stop being scared of it. He nodded. Shook my hand. After he left, I stood alone in the hallway for a while. I wasn't remembering her. I was remembering me. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was finally back. I started volunteering at a small nonprofit. Nothing dramatic. Just helping students apply for scholarships. Reading essays. Practicing interviews. I watched them come in wide-eyed and unsure, talking about their goals, their fears, what they wanted to build from nothing. There was something healing in hearing their stories. Stories not soaked in regret, but full of reach. One girl stayed after a session. Said she'd read something I wrote once. Said it made her feel less crazy for still missing someone who'd hurt her. You made it sound like survival didn't have to be angry, she said. I told her, it doesn't. It just has to be honest. When I got home, I opened my journal. Wrote that line down. Sat with it. It just has to be honest. Some days I still woke up with flashes. Her laugh. Her voice. Not memories. Echoes. But they no longer built walls. They passed through me like wine through an open room. I ran into a friend of hers at the store. Accidental. Harmless. She smiled too wide. Said I looked good. Asked if I was seeing anyone. I told her I was seeing myself, finally. She laughed. Awkward. Said I always had a line. She didn't understand. But that was okay. The goal had never been for everyone else to get it. The goal was peace. And peace doesn't always explain itself. I went to dinner with the woman I'd been seeing. We talked about everything but the past. She told me a story about her worst vacation. I told her about mine. It didn't involve my ex. It involved a missed flight, a stolen bag, and a cat that bit me in Italy. It felt good to laugh at something that didn't have layers. We didn't define what we were. We didn't name it. We just existed in it. After dinner, we walked without a destination. She asked if I still talked to my ex. No, I said. She became a place I don't visit. She nodded. Didn't press. That night, I wrote for hours. Not about pain. Not even about love. Just about stillness. About what it means to be untouched by a memory you used to drown in. I wrote about quiet wins. About the way peace sneaks up on you, not with celebration, but with the sound of your own breath not catching. That was the return. Not to her. To myself. And that was enough. Endings are never the way we imagine them. We picture closure like a speech. A door slammed. A dramatic walk away. But most endings don't sound like anything. They just stop echoing. I didn't realize it had ended until I was 3 months deep into a life that didn't include her name. One morning, I brewed coffee and poured it into a mug I hadn't used since the day she left. I didn't flinch. Didn't pause. Just drank it. That's what peace feels like. Not loud. Not proud. Just clean. A friend asked if I'd ever forgive her. I said I already had. But forgiveness isn't the same as return. It's not a door. It's a mirror. One that lets you look at yourself and not wince. She reached out once more. An email. Short. Just said, I hope you're well. I miss who we were. I didn't reply. Because we weren't anything anymore. Not enemies. Not ghosts. Just pages that ended on different lines. I walked by the hotel once. The one from the beginning. Hotel Palms. They'd changed the sign. New name. New logo. But the shape of the building was the same. Funny how places move on faster than people do. I stood there for a minute. Not angry. Not curious. Just aware. Then I kept walking. I started a new project. A book. Maybe. Or something that feels like one. Not about betrayal. About recovery. Not what broke, but what built. Not her voice. Mine. People asked how long it took me to move on. I told them I didn't move on. I moved in. Into my own head. My own body. My own life. Took down the paintings she picked. Put up silence and space and light. I hosted a dinner at my place. The first real one. New dishes. New friends. Music she never liked. Laughter that didn't need translation. One of them toasted me. Said, to beginnings disguised as endings. Everyone raised a glass. And I thought, that's it. That's the whole story. It wasn't about her. It was about remembering I existed. About unlearning the shape I'd made to fit someone else's chaos. About choosing peace, not because I earned it, but because I stopped apologizing for needing it. The end wasn't a moment. It was a choice repeated, quietly, over and over. Until it stuck. Until her name didn't matter. Until I could say, I loved. I lost. I lived. And none of it ruined me. Because the end wasn't fire or ash. The end was quiet. And I stayed there. Not waiting. Just home. A month later, I traveled again. Somewhere new. Somewhere cold. No itinerary. Just a bag, a pen, and the stillness I'd grown to trust. I found a cabin with no reception. No distractions. Just snow. And breath. I took long walks. Didn't take photos. Didn't share updates. No one asked. That was the piece of it. One night, I stood under a sky so clear I forgot what it was like to need anything. I thought of her then, not with pain, but as a figure in the distance. A shape I once chased. A voice I once translated. But she wasn't there. Not really. Only the memory of a version of me who had loved her. And I thanked him. That man. For trying. For holding on as long as he did. For finally letting go. I stayed up writing. One sentence became a paragraph. A paragraph became a page. I wrote, there are no villains here. Just people. Just longing. Just silence. That sentence stayed with me. I returned home lighter. My apartment looked the same, but it felt different. As if it had exhaled while I was gone. As if even the walls had released something. I cooked for myself. A meal I never made when we were together. She'd hated the smell of garlic. I used 4 cloves. I read before bed. No distractions. No tension. Just sentences and sleep. Weeks passed. Then came spring. The park near my place bloomed. I sat on the bench we used to call ours. Only it wasn't ours. It never was. Just a bench. Just a space I can sit in now without flinching. I watched people walk by. Some together. Some alone. And I didn't feel envy. I felt presence. A life that was mine, even if no one was beside me to confirm it. I smiled at a woman with a dog. She smiled back. Nothing heavy in it. Just warmth. A small exchange. Enough. I called my mom. Told her I was okay. Really okay. She cried. I didn't. Because I wasn't broken anymore. I wasn't healing. I was healed. One night, I opened the drawer where I'd kept the final note she sent. I read it again. It didn't sting. It just read like something that happened to someone else. I put it back. Closed the drawer. Turned off the light. And slept 8 uninterrupted hours. That's what the end looks like. Not fire. Not silence. Not regret. Just breath. And room.